Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Rico Medina. I'm the mayor of the city of San Bruno. And what I did make sure for each and every one of you is that it wasn't raining to come here tonight. So I take care of you. I want to welcome you to the Recreation and Aquatic Center. If this is your first time here, welcome. It has been a huge transformation from what it once was. And this was, in part, due to the PG&E settlement agreement that was reached between the city and PG&E. So a lot of money came to this facility so that we would do something long-lasting that benefited the entire community who had suffered and lost lives back in 2010. So I welcome you here. We are fortunate and blessed to have this facility as well as our supervisor. After Jackie got sworn in, I said, so, what are you going to do next? She did not say Disneyland. What I asked is, could you come to a town hall? She represents a large majority of San Bruno. As District 1, we placed Dave Pine. And she said yes. So this is her first town hall as the supervisor. And so we appreciate that she chose San Bruno. Thank you, Jackie. So as many of you know, you may have heard of her name before, or seen her on the news, I don't know, once or twice. In 1980, she ran for the San Mateo Board of Supervisors. And at that time, she was the youngest person elected to the board, back then. And now, no. So things reversed, you know. Obviously, you know she went to Sacramento in the Assembly, in the State Senate. And then back in April of 2008, in a special election, she ran for Congress, which Leo Ryan held, that she served as a staff member for, and was elected. And now, go forward into 2023 in September, she announced that she was going to run for supervisor in 2024. And so it is, I think, 40 years after first elected to the board, she's back. On a personal note, and for San Bruno, I can tell you that Jackie, in her various capacities, positions, and titles that she's held, is one person that I have known, acknowledged, respect, and admired. When it came time in our community here, during that explosion, our congresswoman held our hand. When we were in Washington, D.C. for the NTSB hearings, she was there. She would come to the hearings to make sure Mayor Wayne and myself were okay during this process. She would come, walk the site, be there for us. But it's not just San Bruno. She has been there for all of us, I believe, and has made great strides and accomplishments, and has made inroads that will be long-lasting tributes to what she has done, what she has given, and she is back to continue to give some more. So with that, on behalf of the city of San Bruno, Jackie, I welcome you, and my friends, I give you our supervisor, Jackie Speier.
Use the mic.
Okay, great. Well, first let's meet all of the other members of the San Bruno City Council who are here. So, is Tony Medina here?
Marty.
Oh, sorry, Marty Medina. Marty's here. Tom Hamilton is here. Sandy Alvarez, I believe, is here. And we are only missing Michael Salazar because he had to go to another meeting. But he was with us at the County Board of Supervisors this week as the chair of the Measure K Evaluation Committee. I think we also have some additional guests who are here. It's on my list. It's also City Councilwoman Susie Niederhofer. Welcome. Nice to meet you. And from the city of Millbrae, Stephen Rinaldi. And I think we have the former Millbrae Mayor and City Councilwoman Ann Schneider here. Is former Mayor and City Councilman Pradeep Gupta here? Okay. Felicia Leong, Chief Executive Officer of the Daly City Coma Chamber of Commerce is here. Mary Cram from the City of South San Francisco Chamber of Commerce is here. And the police chief, Agner, is here. Okay, so here's the run of show for this evening. There are two issues that we're going to speak about briefly, and then I'm going to give you a little primer on county government, federal government, and then we'll open it up to questions. So let's start with our first presentation, and it's going to be made by Sandra Firpo, who is the Emergency Management Coordinator with the County Department of Emergency Management. The reason why this is so important is because, just like Pacific Palisades, we live in a topographical area that could have the same thing happen here. So, Sandra's going to give you a little primer, and then we're going to give you a much bigger primer at the county fairgrounds. It's free. I urge you to come. It's going to be on April 26th, and she'll probably say more about it. But that's part of what I want county government to do, to engage with the community. And we do that on issues that are important to you. So Sandra, why don't you come up? I've known Sandra in another life when she was with ABC7, KGO Radio. You were the producer. Look at, there's always another career for all of us. Here you go, Sandra. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for inviting us. I am with the County Emergency Management Department, and this works, yeah. So wildfires obviously have been on our minds for quite some time, just in the last few months of the year. So let's give you a few tools. So the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the lessons learned from the tragedy in Southern California. So a few things that we can take away from the experiences that other people have had includes you do not have to wait to leave. You do not have to stare at your phone waiting for a message to evacuate if you feel that it is unsafe, if you smell smoke, see flames, if you have someone in your home with limited mobility, or you have young children, or you have pets. It will take you longer to move. So you do not have to wait, is one lesson learned. Everyone in every fire that I've spoken with has said they wished they left earlier. How about half a tank of gas at all times? You don't want to have to be leaving and then have to pull into a gas station along with 500 of your neighbors. You want to get out of town. So adjust your schedule. And these are all things you can do without having to add to your time or life or cost, right? Just fill your tank up when it gets to half a tank. I used to work for a fire department. The rule was any vehicle at a half a tank is empty. You have to fill it up. Be aware of your surroundings, right? You may get an alert, or you may not. You may hear an alarm. You don't necessarily know what it's for, so it's sort of a heads up. What is that? Why is that happening? What should I be doing, if anything? Have a go bag. You've heard of go bags. How many of you are familiar, at least, with what a go bag is? Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then make sure that you plan for your pets, you plan for your children. You're not all going to be home sitting around the dinner table when something happens, so you want to be able to plan what is the procedure going to be if we're not all together. So what is a go bag? Very quickly, it's not everything in the world, it's not your pack your kitchen thing. It should be something that each member of your family has each member of your family should be able to carry their own go bag. It's something to keep you a little bit more comfortable for the first 3 to 7 days of an emergency. Certainly any medications you need. If you have any dietary concerns, you want to make sure that you have something in there that you can eat, right? These, if you want to take a quick picture, but we'll have other options for you to have information like this. Some recommended items that you may want to have in your go bag. SMC alert. Every county in California has an alerting system. College campuses often have an alerting system. The one here in San Mateo County is called SMC Alert, and I highly recommend that you have that or sign up for that so that you receive alerts on your phone. That QR code will take you there, or that website. The other thing we wanted to talk to you a little bit about is knowing your zone. There's a program called Genesis that informs you about, first of all, you can enter your address and it'll tell you what zone you belong to. Let's say we had to evacuate and our law enforcement folks were evacuating a particular neighborhood. And they'll say everybody southeast of El Camino and northwest of Genevieve. I'm sorry, but on a good day I couldn't tell you my north from my south, let alone if I was nervous and had to evacuate. But if I know that I live in SB005, right, and it says we're going to evacuate SB005, I know that I'm impacted, right? So we're trying to simplify that so there's less doubt when you get an alert as to whether or not you are impacted and whether or not you should act. We'll talk a little bit about defensible space. We have one little house here in Lahaina, if you can see there. Show that. One house that did survive. I can't promise you that it was because of defensible space, but this is something that we often think of as for people with property and lots of acreage. No, it's for us as well here in San Bruno or in San Mateo County. We want to rethink defensible space with our neighbors and talk about keeping the first 5 feet around your house with non-flammable material. So you'll notice that even the wood fence at the point where it touches the house is metal. It's a metal gate, right? So, and everything out directly around the house is non-flammable. This is an actual photo of a house that has adjusted their landscaping to be more fire defensible and fire resistant. So there's things you can do. You can do things tonight that will make you safer than you were this morning. Having an out-of-state contact. We can discuss that more at another time, but that's a biggie. Packing your go bag, signing up for SMC alerts, knowing your zone, so please check out the Genesis Protect app and website. Refilling your gas tank, as we discussed. Next time you're at the grocery store, pick up an extra case of water. Next time you're at the lumber yard or the hardware store, pick up an extra set of batteries. And then make sure you have a working flashlight and a pair of shoes next to your bed. Why a pair of shoes next to your bed? What's the number one injury if an earthquake happens at night? Cut out feet from broken glass, right? So you know how in an airplane we are told, put your mask on first and then help others? Same thing. Put your shoes on, grab the flashlight, after the shaking has stopped, go check the house, go check on the kids, etc. As Supervisor Speier mentioned, we have an upcoming event. You have the flyer that was on your chair when you arrived. We're very excited about this event. We're going to be showcasing the many resources you have available here in San Mateo County, things that I didn't even know about. I'm very excited. Looking forward to seeing you at the San Mateo County Event Center on April 26th. It's absolutely free. Bring your neighbors, bring your friends. And so lastly, I want to leave you with our preparedness calendar, where it'll help you walk through, step by step, things you can do on a regular basis as part of your lifestyle to be better prepared. And we have the calendar in printed form at the resource table, which I highly recommend you visit sometime this evening. with that, thank you very much.
So that hopefully will get you to a point where you think, I really want to go, because there's so much that you're going to be able to learn. We're going to have some powerful experts talk about what we need to do, what we can do, and there'll be resources, and that's really important, because if you're anything like me, who do I hire to come do X, Y, and Z? And there'll be lots of those resources available to you as well. Ari DeLay is the San Bruno Fire Chief. Chief, thank you so much for being here. And then along the window, evidently, we have lots of information available to you. Oh, it's right over here, yes. Okay, so please avail yourself of that as well. And then our next presentation is going to be by Megan Gosch. She's a management analyst at the county, and she oversees immigrant services at the County Office of Community Affairs. So, Megan?
Thank you so much. I'm going to go over a little bit about the demographics of San Bruno County to kind of put into context our county's immigrant communities. I'll talk about a brief overview of constitutional rights, and I'll also discuss key resources that are available to all of our communities and how to stay informed. And I do want to say I am not a lawyer. I am only giving general legal information and basic rights, but I cannot give legal advice. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. In San Bruno County, about 1 in 3 residents is a first-generation immigrant, meaning they were born in another country and then chose to make San Bruno County their home. But there are many more second- and third-generation members of immigrant families. As a matter of fact, almost 50% of our residents speak a language other than English at home. I'm really proud to say that San Bruno County has been recognized as a certified welcoming county. We were the first one in the United States to have this certification, so we're very proud of that. The welcoming standard reflects what we already know in San Bruno County, that our communities are stronger, safer, and more prosperous when immigrant neighbors are included, valued, and listened to. So everyone in the United States, regardless of immigration status, has certain rights under the Constitution. The right to remain silent, the right to be free of unreasonable searches, and the right to refuse to sign any document before speaking to a lawyer. No matter your immigration status, that is for everybody in this country. And on the next slide, I'm going to share a tool that will help community members put these rights into practice. Okay, so, by show of hands, does anybody know or are aware of what these red cards are for? Okay. My next question is even harder. How many people in this room have a red card? Okay. So our assignment at the end of the night, please go to our resource table. We have these red cards in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Tongans. And we also have Samoan, Portuguese, Tagalog, and Russian online. So we have many languages that you can print out. So these tools are super important. They were developed by the Immigrant Legal Resource Center in 2007, and they were modeled after a soccer red card, so basically stop all action. On one side, the card has instructions in the preferred language of the user. And this really walks somebody through situations if someone comes to their door or they are met in public with an immigration enforcement officer. They instruct the user to not open the door if they are at home, not to answer questions, and not to sign anything without speaking to a lawyer first. The other side is always in English, and this is the side you hand to an immigration officer. And it's basically saying that I am exercising my constitutional rights. The user can give the card to an official without even speaking, and they can just hand it to them, and they know what it is, and so it'll explain what they are doing. You can see on the right-hand side, this says that these cards are available to both citizens and non-citizens alike. Using a red card does not mean that you are undocumented. Anyone can use a red card. And then on the other side of the card, it shows the San Mateo County Rapid Response Hotline phone number, which I'll now explain what that is. So the Rapid Response Hotline is like the 911 of immigration-related emergencies for San Mateo County. It's a 24-hour line, and it's supported with funding from the County of San Mateo. Is anyone here familiar with the Rapid Response Hotline? Just a handful. Okay, so we have, again, in our resources, we have posters in Spanish and English. We invite you to share those. The Rapid Response Network is equipped to respond to immigration enforcement actions by verifying rumors. They can dispel misinformation. They can document enforcement activity to ensure constitutional rights are being respected. And then they can also connect impacted individuals with legal services and wraparound support. So it's a really important network within our county. If you've heard rumors about immigration enforcement, or you see something and you're not sure what they are, call the Rapid Response Hotline. They have volunteers that go out into the field and they verify whether it is actually ICE, and if it is ICE, what's happening. So, and then we ask, please don't share rumors on social media. That just causes so much fear and anxiety, and things kind of blow out of proportion. So, as an example, just yesterday, there was a report of ICE at a restaurant in San Bruno. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. It is the Minari Korean cuisine. And so they called Faith in Action. Faith in Action came out. It turns out it was just airport workers having lunch. But that's how rumors can get started. You don't know what they look like, and then you're afraid. And so we really recommend that you call the Rapid Response Hotline. And also, if someone has been detained or arrested, immediately call the Rapid Response Hotline and have detailed information. What is their name? Where did it occur? And if you can, their date of birth, because that's how you can look them up in an ICE locator. And we also understand that when someone is detained, they are first taken to a holding facility in San Francisco. Late afternoon, they then transfer them somewhere in the valley, like a Bakersfield location. It's much, much more difficult for our legal service providers to go to them and speak to them. So we really want to be able to enact them very quickly. And when you're in doubt, call the hotline. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So just a quick example. If you're at home, someone comes to the door and you're not sure who they are or what they're doing, you do not have to open your door. The red card provides instructions. You don't have to open your door to immigration officials unless they have a valid judicial warrant, which I'll show in the next slide. It's important to be aware that if you open your door to the agents, it's kind of like an implicit consent for the agents to enter your house, and then it's harder to exercise certain constitutional rights. So we just recommend keeping the door closed, put the red card in the window, or shove it under the door. And then if you see potentially immigration agents in your community, you can again call the Rapid Response Hotline, and they will deploy volunteers to verify or confirm that they are there. If immigration has shown a valid warrant for an individual within your home, have that person step outside and shut the door behind them. That way, it's only dealing with one person, there's nobody else in the house or the residents that will be impacted. So for a warrant to be valid, it needs to contain certain information. Both search and arrest warrants must be signed by a judge, a justice of the peace, or a magistrate. The dates specified in the warrant must be accurate and valid. For search warrants, the address has to be correct and the area that's being searched stated clearly. For arrest warrants, the person to be arrested must be named, the name must be spelled correctly, and described. And I mention that because sometimes that's not the case, and that's a way for someone to not have to be detained. An ICE administrative warrant of removal or deportation is not a judicial warrant, and it does not give an officer the right to enter a home or another private area. It does not contain a signature of a judge, a justice of the peace, or a magistrate, and it has not been issued by a court. So those are the differences between the kind of warrants that may be seen. And while we hope that none of our community ever finds themselves in an immigration-related emergency, we also encourage every family to have a plan in place. Just like emergency response, we recommend an immigration emergency child care plan. This applies to families that have immigration concerns or not immigration concerns. Having a family plan is for everyone. Families should select emergency caregivers who they trust. Have a conversation with those people, and then share this information with your children in an age-appropriate way. Parents should ensure that the emergency caregiver has access to their children's important information, and that their caregiver is listed as an emergency contact at their school. And so this family preparedness plan, which we have over there in multiple languages, it has a caregiver authorization affidavit, which is a sworn legal document that authorizes an emergency caregiver to make limited medical and educational decisions. It's signed and dated by the emergency caregiver. Don't write the plan and sign it. You wait till it's needed. So they would have a copy of that plan. It can be completed by a relative or a non-relative. They only have to be over 18 years old, and it can actually be a sibling that is over 18 or over. And all of the resources that I've discussed today, red cards, the rapid response hotline, the family preparedness plans, all of this is available on our website in one location. It's www.sncrapidresponse.org. And we also have most of this information over at our resource table, so please go there after and visit and take some resources. There's also a link to legal services on that page, as well as an ICE locator if someone has been detained. So it's lots of information. And what's next? So, do sign up for all of you tonight. If you do not have a red card, please go get a red card. Share them with family, share them with community members. Get a rapid response poster. They can go in businesses, they can go in laundromats, they can go in gas stations. We want this number just plastered across San Mateo County. Practice asserting your constitutional rights if you ever feel like you may be in that situation. The more you practice, the less anxiety you'll have if it actually comes to you having to use a red card. Discuss emergency planning with your loved ones. And lastly, talk to your members of the community about what are our rights. The more people that know our constitutional rights and the resources available to them, the stronger we'll be. We know that there's a lot of uncertainty right now as we navigate a challenging immigration system. We aim to continue providing up-to-date information and resources to our communities. It's an ongoing dialogue. Please follow us on social media. We post information about any ICE activity that we are informed about. And if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us.
Okay, let me also thank Jennifer Wilson from the Recreation and Aquatic Center. She is the supervisor here, super helpful in helping arrange this. Where are you, Jennifer? Again, to the mayor and city council members, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to use this space. It is truly beautiful. It's the first time I've been here, and I'm very excited to have it here for all of you to enjoy as well. All right, so now we are going to move on with our primer on county government and the federal government. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's helpful as we think about what's happening on the federal level. A lot of that trickles down to the county and is going to impact us. So it's important to know, at least have an idea of what's really at stake for us in our community. Let me start off by saying that San Mateo County is a blessed county. We are all blessed to live in this county. It is the richest county in California and the fourth richest in the country. Now, having said that, we also have 30,000 kids living in poverty in this county. 30,000. Some of them are living in shelters, some of them are living in cars, and one of my passions is to lift every one of those children out of poverty in this county. I started a foundation, some of you may have known when I was out of office. It has grown. Our first project is starting within the next 3 weeks. It's called the Baby Bonus. And infants born in San Mateo County who are Medicaid eligible and their families are going to receive $300 a month for the first 3 years of life. We've raised $9 million. Why is that important? It's important because all the brain development happens in the first 3 years of life. In the first year, a baby's brain doubles in size, and by year 3, it's 80% of an adult brain. Now, our goal is to also provide wraparound services. So the Health Plan of San Mateo is now training a number of community workers who are going to go out and help these parents make sure that children get their well baby visits, assist them with any of their needs. We'll have lots of good data. And then my goal is to go back to Congress and say, you know that child tax credit that you first put in place that lifted half the kids in this country out of poverty and then you let it lapse? At least restore it for all children in this country from 0 to 3. You will save money in terms of special education. It'll save money in the juvenile justice system. And it's just the right thing to do. So Let's move on to our first beautiful pie chart. Isn't that great? All right, so this is San Mateo County, $5.2 billion, and all the funds we received. So those are federal funds that come to the county, those are state funds, and those are county funds that are generated. $1.3 billion is spent on health. So that's spent on the county hospital, all our clinics, behavioral health, our aging and adult services program, environmental health, and family health for prenatal to age 3. The $1.2 billion, that orange quarter there, almost quarter, includes all of our social services, community services, excuse me. So it's parks, planning, libraries, public works, and sustainability. And then the $557 million is our criminal justice system, so that's the sheriff, the jail, patrol, investigations, and SWAT. Then move over to the, I guess that's mustard colored, and that's social services. So that's foster care, homelessness, veteran services, and SNAP, which is the food program for those in lower incomes. The last one is administrative, not the last one, 289 is administrative costs within the county. 1.5 billion is all the money for capital improvements, our reserves, and projects that are anticipated but not yet fully funded. All right, let's move on to the next one. I thought you'd find this interesting. These are the biggest property tax payers in San Mateo County. Look who is number 1. PG&E. Genentech at 36 million. Gilead Sciences are, and then you have a series of Oyster Point, Hibiscus, Slough LLCs. A lot of them are in the sciences, in what we would call the biosciences. And then of course you have United Airlines, Google right here in San Bruno, at YouTube and Facebook. So that's about $295 million in property taxes. Okay, next is our county demographics. And as you can see, we're 745,000 people is our population. And ethnically, if you look down that list, you'll see that the white population is a 40%, Asian population at 30, Hispanic Latino at 24, Black or African American at 2.2, American Indian, Alaska Native 1. So, and then some other races and 2 or more. So we're a very diverse county, and that really is to our advantage. And then if you look at 35% are foreign-born, and then you look at those who are receiving Medi-Cal services. So these are the healthcare services being provided to those who are lower income. And we have 161,000 participants, and you can see the breakdown there as well. Now, this is what's a stunner. Poverty level in San Mateo County for a family of 4 is 300% of the federal poverty level. So the federal poverty level is more like $30,000. But we don't live in Louisiana or Mississippi where you can buy a house for $100,000 and you can pay rent of $1,500. So poverty level in San Mateo County is $93,000. And then you see 18% of families in San Mateo County are experiencing poverty. And we've got to do more than we have. To be the richest county in California and have 18% of our population living in poverty is just not acceptable. Okay, now let's move over to the federal budget. Now, when you see what's happening in Washington right now and you're scratching your head, you have reason to be scratching your head. Because if you look here, most of the federal spending is called mandatory spending. That means you have to, by law, expend those dollars. So what are those programs? There's Medicaid, Social Security. The other mandatory include federal and military retirement, SNAP, Veterans Disability Compensation, farm price support, and Medicare. Now, then you have defense, which is actually under the discretionary part of the federal budget. But again, it's 13%. Non-defense discretionary. So when you realize that most of this is already locked in, I hate to use that word, locked, let me just say rather than what I was going to say. Most of this is already cooked. It's baked in. This is the area, this 15%. So what is that 15%? Well, it's transportation, it's Department of Education, it's Veterans Affairs in terms of health care, it's income security, it's homeland security, it's the National Institute of Health, it's the CDC, and it's the FDA. So, you want to cut any of those? Do you want us to continue to do research? Do we want to come up with cures? Do we want to come up with a vaccine if we need another one? So, the effort that's underway right now is to just strip that one in particular, although efforts are underway in every one of these areas in terms of federal employment to strip them as well. So, what percentage of those employed in the United States are in federal employment? Take a guess. 20. Someone said 20%. Okay, you're wrong. Okay. 60%? Who said 60%? You're wrong. 10%? You're wrong. 6%? You're wrong. 3%? You're getting closer. It's less than 2%. But the administration now thinks that's really a smart idea. Let's just, rip half of those folks. But it's a myth, and I didn't mean to offend you, by the way. It's a myth that has been promoted for decades, that it's this fat, bloated operation, and there's so many people working in the federal government. It's just not true. Now, how about foreign aid? How much do you think of the federal budget is spent on foreign aid? 2%. I said 2%. You're close. 1%. And how much do you think is spent on USAID? Under 1%. It's 0.1%. That soft power that has made us friends around the world for forever. All right. You can see why it's a little frustrating to be watching what's going on. Okay, the next.
Don't forget to ask your question about that money.
Sure.
Why is my money for Social Security and Medicare listed under the federal government's money? Because that belongs to people.
Well, that is how we spend our money.
But isn't that not the government money?
Well, so you do pay, when you were working, you paid a federal payroll tax, right? You paid it for Social Security and you paid it for Medicare. You will be surprised to know that that did not begin to cover the costs of those programs. Because when you were working, the expectation was that you were going to live to be a certain age. And guess what's happening? We're outliving those estimates. And so that's why in the end it is, it's a huge part of the budget. Okay? All right, and then the next slide shows you what's happened over the years. In 1974, in terms of total spending, 49% was mandatory and 51% was discretionary. And now it's 73% that's mandatory and a much smaller amount, 27%, that is discretionary. So, I think that's all of the lessons you're going to learn tonight in terms of this county and federal budget. Is there one more? Oh, there's one more slide. Oh, okay. So this just shows you in terms of discretionary funding, this is another way of looking at what we just talked about. Half the discretionary funding is going to defense, and then the other half is non-defense, but it's such a small piece of the overall federal pie. Okay, so what is my goal as your county supervisor? It's to reduce the cost of living in San Mateo County. That is a big challenge, but one of the ways we do it is by building more housing. And my goal is to build, in the next 10 years, 5,000 new houses, homes, apartments, condominiums for workforce housing in San Mateo County. And one of the ways we can do it is to follow what the community college district did. They took surplus land, they built housing for their employees and their faculty, they offered that housing at half the market rate. And guess what? They stopped losing staff and faculty. Those who were living in the housing were able to save money and then go out and buy a house. They were able to live there for 7 years. And during that time, the community college was able to pay off what are called certificates of participation, and they made about $1 million a year. So why not do that, right? So we're going to look at surplus land everywhere. I'm looking at it at Samtrans. I'm looking at it at the Peninsula Healthcare District. I'm looking at it at the county. We're going to find land that we already have that's surplus, so we don't have to pay for that. We do certificates of participation. We build housing. And so for the county employees, for the city employees, for the first responders, for our law enforcement, there'll be opportunities for them to live in the county in which they work. Beyond that, I want to in terms of cost of living, next to a mortgage, and sometimes higher than a mortgage, is the cost of child care in San Mateo County. It is unbelievably difficult. $3,000 a month for a 1-year-old to have daycare in San Mateo County. So I'm looking at what we can do. Can we add a 1/4 cent sales tax that's dedicated only to child care, to build more child care slots and to create more child care workers? Can we do that? It would generate about $50 million a year. Now, I don't know if that's going to pan out, but that's one of the ideas. But there's things we can do and must do to reduce the cost of child care. And then I think as we look at ways to make it more livable here, I want to focus on, if you live here, we want you to work here. Right now in the county, we have vacancy rates that are really astonishing. In the social services area, these are child social workers. These are the social workers that have to go and take these kids out of very dangerous situations. There's a 47% vacancy rate. A 47% vacancy rate. Our court reporters. We don't have enough court reporters. So if you're in the north end, you have to traipse all the way down to Redwood City for trials. Do you know how much a court reporter makes in San Mateo County? Well, I don't know, is $120,000 enough? It's $120,000. All you need is a high school diploma and 18-month program for court reporting. So one of the things we're doing on May 2nd, again at the fairgrounds, is we're going to do a mega job fair. And we're gonna open it up to, certainly for all the county jobs, but also cities that have openings. And we're gonna encourage everyone, we're gonna encourage all those federal workers that have just lost their jobs to come here and look at opportunities that exist here in San Mateo County. And then finally, I'm gonna do, hopefully create what's called a county core. And that is to take 16 to 24-year-olds, get them hooked on being in public service, and hope that they will then pursue a career in public service, because it's an incredible calling. Okay, so that's my update for you. I'm now up for any questions you want to ask me. Here they go. Okay. Yeah, actually, why don't we do that? Why don't you line up here and please make it a question and not a speech. If you can. If you can't, I might have to cut you off. But,
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Robin. I'm a chapter leader with the North Peninsula ACO chapter. I am a volunteer, and mine isn't really a question, but it's going to be super brief. Just a comment. First of all, thank you for having this forum. Great resources you put here. Thank you and the County Board of Supervisors for all you're doing around housing and economic development, keeping our communities safe. In terms of the immigrant rights, just a word of support for the current policies that we have. Immigrants are now treated no different than any other person in the county, and that's wonderful. So it's just a comment. Thank you.
we have 60,000 immigrants in San Mateo County who are mostly of adult age. 20,000 of them have a bachelor's degree.
Hi, my name's Kathy, and I just have a question. I'm all for housing, if we get the infrastructure. About a year or two ago, I was reading in our local newspaper, this is Tampran, where the airport was upset because of the noise insulation issue, and all the buildings are building along housing. And San Bruno kind of ignored their issues, the airport's issues, and said, we're going ahead with this. That's fine. The following week, 1 week later, in that same paper, it was saying San Bruno cannot handle the sewage issue because our pipes are too old. So what are all these buildings going up? How is the infrastructure being addressed? Roads, sewage, water, all that. That's my question.
Okay, so you're asking a question that is both a city and state question. And most of our roads tend to be Caltrans related. Now, the neighborhood roads are a public works component of a city. So that is not as much a county issue as it is a city issue. So I'll encourage you to talk to the mayor, Star.
How could you say that our community is more safe by letting all illegal aliens remain here and not to cooperate with ICE when lots of them are great, wonderful people? Please don't think I'm stereotyping anybody. But there is a very small percentage, and even one is too many, murder, rapist, pedophile. And for the county not to cooperate with ICE, puts law enforcement in danger when they're releasing them from a hole, and also puts those ICE officers and any public citizen that's walking by, like a parking lot. There was a video recently of police letting a gang member go. I think it was like in Ohio or somewhere, where the ICE run after them in a public parking lot and endangering everybody. So, I understand there's lots of wonderful people here and they contribute to our community, but there is that small percentage, and to leave them go is not making us more safe.
Okay, so my answer to your question is that was a decision made by the Board of Supervisors before I got on the board. I believe strongly that if you are a murderer, a rapist, a sex offender, and probably a number of other crimes being committed, that you don't have the right to stay here. And I believe we should be cooperating with ICE in those circumstances. We're the only county that I know of in California that has this blanket, no cooperation with ICE under any circumstance. San Francisco, which tends to be seen as the most liberal, has 36 exemptions. The state of California has a number of exemptions. One of the reasons I ran for the Board of Supervisors was because I thought that they had made a mistake in not supporting the amendment that was put forward by Supervisor Mueller to exempt those 3 categories. And the truth of the matter is, there was a San Bruno resident who had sex with his partner's daughter, who was under 18. His son called the police. He was apprehended. He had beaten up his son as well. He went to county jail. He was, in the end, either tried or pled guilty. I forget exactly what happened. He got 2 years, but he ended up serving the time, which was just 1 year, out for good behavior, at the county jail, and then was released. And the families were concerned that he was going to come back and attack them. So that's a case where he doesn't have the right to stay in this country, in my view. Okay, we're going on to the next question.
Can I just one follow-up?
No.
The last Board of Supervisors meeting that this was brought up, and that comment was made, you remained silent. And 2 citizens attacked me, calling me racist, for mentioning that, as well as Ray Mueller, and you remained silent.
It was during public comments, if it was during public comments, normally we do not comment on public comments. I'm telling you what my position is.
Ray Mueller did, and you let me do it.
Well, I don't recall it, but the other part is Ray Mueller was the one who brought the amendment forward, so I don't quite understand it. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm John O'Hara. I would like to transition into the idea that creating a safe and loving place is what we're trying to attempt here, and so that's cool. When it comes to space, this space, that resource land that we have, is there anybody else, is there any competition to that land? Like, we get this idea, and it sounds like the colleges did a great thing, and it worked out for them. Is there competition to that land that some company will come in and try to take that land, or do we have complete control over that so we can manage it?
We have complete control of the land.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Supervisor Speier, our community here in San Bruno. My name is Sandra Firpo. I was raised here in San Bruno, and welcome everyone to our beautiful park, which I was fortunate enough to be raised in. I was a school board member here for San Bruno Park Elementary School District for 17 years, and I was a huge proponent for teacher and staff workforce housing. And I was wondering, when you mentioned about workforce housing with all of our first responders, which I totally am 100% with you on that, but you didn't mention workforce housing for school district employees. So I was wondering if you're willing also to work with our 23, we have maybe about 2 or 3 school districts that already have it. So wondering if you're open to working with the staff. Okay. And then also you did not mention housing for low-income families. That's one question. The second one is, and also I love the idea of you implementing a program for 16 years and up, our youth to get involved into public service. And I'm also a JJDPC, on the County Commission for the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And when I'm in these spaces within the community here in our county, I always want to make sure that we bring them in these spaces. And so I was wondering if you're also interested in bringing that program to our incarcerated youth. Thank you.
I'm sorry, which program?
When you're talking about getting our youth involved in public service. I just want to make sure we don't forget them.
No, that's a very good point. So actually, when I was in Congress, I brought together school districts and city councils to learn about what the community college district had done and urged them all to do that. And Jefferson Elementary was one of the first that I believe has completed their program, and it's very successful. Absolutely, we should be using surplus land for our teachers as well. And then in terms of the county core, it would be open to children or youth that have moved through that correctional system and are back with us. Yes.
Hi, I'm Carol Martin. I'm a resident of San Bruno. Been a resident for about 40 years. I've noticed in the last year or two the pollution levels out of SFO have increased noticeably. And I'm focusing more on the noise pollution, and a lot of other people in the community have shared the same concern with me. And I only see it getting worse and worse. So just a couple questions is, SFO knows this is bad and it's getting worse. At what point does it become almost criminal in nature? Where does it become malfeasance beyond just being negligent? Another point is, where do we draw the line? If it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's going to affect everyone in the county, where do we draw a limit to it? I mean, there's limits to lead in the water and everything else. Why is there no limit to this? And then, if we let it go so far that it's irrevocable, what are we going to do then? I mean, what can we do at that point? I know there's a lot of, money behind the airlines and so forth, and I know you've been working on it, but I want to plant this seed because everyone in the community I've talked to is experiencing the same problem. Thanks.
So thank you for your concern. It's something that, living next to an airport is something that we have to recognize comes with certain downside risks. It does not, however, come with an acceptance that the noise can be so terrible that you can't sleep at night. And one of the things that we were successful in doing when I was still in Congress was to negotiate a different path that was used between the hours of, I think it was either midnight or 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. That went through the bay, so it wasn't coming over San Bruno and other communities. So it was one small step that we got done. But I've got to tell you, it took 3 years, and the resources of my staff member, who was a former pilot, to really hold their feet to the fire. Now, having said all that, the FAA is more interested in protecting the airlines, frankly, in my view, than they are in protecting the people living around airports. And there's a real, I think, willingness to accede to whatever it is they come up with as an excuse for why they can't do certain things. And I think everyone recognizes that with the recent crashes, that there's actually been a decline in people wanting to fly because there's this fear that we don't have enough resources being put to air traffic controllers and to safety. So, putting that aside, the noise pollution is an issue that I feel very strongly about. We'll do what we can on the Airport Community Roundtable. We now have a new director at the airport who I haven't met yet, but I look forward to working with you on it.
Ann Schneider from Millbrae. Two points. On the cost of infrastructure, a good slide would have is to show where local governments get their money. And I hate to speak for San Bruno, but I sent this to you. If you take a general fund of each city and divide it by its population, you get a per capita general fund fee. For San Bruno, it's about $1,458 dollars. For Millbrae, it's $1,709. Hillsborough, it's $3,000. Colma, it's over $10,000. That's the amount of money cities have to invest into infrastructure. So there really is a difference between cities with infrastructure, and I think where San Bruno and Millbrae are unique is the sheer number of regional agencies that own significant parts of the city. In San Bruno, it's the National Cemetery. In Millbrae, it's SFO, SFPUC, PG&E, BART, Caltrain, transportation agencies. None of those pay property tax.
they might pay a fire assessment on that. That drops our available money for infrastructure, and yet those very agencies use the infrastructure that everybody else is paying for. So not every city in the county is the same. We're actually all quite unique.
And your question is what?
The question is, when we pay for our Measure K dollars, and the plan is to make it equitable for programs all over, there are cities that are unequal. They're just simply unequal. We get less money. My question actually, I'm just bringing that up and I'm letting you all know that Millbrae and San Bruno lost our financial ability when the airport came in. It took our land for that airport, and it's continued to expand to us, and it's taken away that economic ability to be able to care for the roads and the other infrastructure. And I'll be proving data on this coming up. My question is, if you saw the new fire maps, both Millbrae and San Bruno have larger chunks in extreme high fire risk. We have SFPUC on our side. They're very difficult to deal with. They are our major employer, our major landowner in Millbrae. We could use your help in getting the big regional agencies to work with us. The fire losses that we've had in Millbrae were actually started by Caltrade, and they were on our east side. And again, you and your staff were hugely, and we're very grateful for stopping the 20 years of flooding in Millbrae neighborhoods. But it's the SFO and SFPUC that are going to keep us in high-risk areas. So can you help the cities with that? Help make that happen. Thank you.
I'll do whatever I can. I certainly will convene a meeting that we can talk to the SFPUC and look at ways to reduce the fire impacts.
Just so everybody knows, SFPUC is going to be taking Gosch to turn it into a laboratory. So we'll be losing one of our last commercial properties. Thank you.
Hal Wagner, I'm in Half Moon Bay, and in terms of surplus land, there's no discussion of the fact that there's so much open land south of the city boundary all along the coast side, and a lot of county rural areas, which are, I believe, considered outside of the urban rural county or boundary. And, if some of those lands can be zoned or otherwise accessed, to build affordable housing, it seems like that's a large expansion area that may need infrastructure support. If those are things the county can address, and somehow, some years ago, the county saw to the creation of affordable housing just south of Half Moon Bay at Moon Ridge. I don't know how that happened, but if that can happen, we should be able to do a lot more.
So we are opening another farm housing program in Half Moon Bay within weeks, and the issues on the coast are complicated by a lack of water. It's also not where the transportation opportunities are as readily available as they are on the bay side. And you've got the Coastal Commission, which has a very impactful ability to restrict a number of housing opportunities on the coast. That's something we put in place decades ago, and that's why we have the beautiful coastline we have as well. So the jobs and the transportation skeleton is really on the bay side, and where we will probably be emphasizing most of the housing. Yes.
Hi, Supervisor Speier. Good to see you here. Met with you years ago now around the Peninsula Healthcare District in their wellness center. At the time, we pulled together a town hall to see if we could address affordable housing. Mid-10 was then brought into that project. I have learned since recently that is not being followed up on. In fact, the Mid-10 developers have almost closely been cut out of the process. So I was wondering if we could reopen those discussions and do what we could to see if we can get affordable housing as part of that project.
So actually, I've already met with one of the members of the healthcare district. He laid out what happened in that wellness center proposal, and frankly, the issues were that the developer was looking at maximizing their profit, and one of the goals was to have a couple of penthouses that were going to rent for $19,000 a month. That became unacceptable to the healthcare district, thankfully. And we're going back to the drawing board. They're very committed to affordable housing. So I think whatever plan is going to come forward is going to be a much better plan that's going to recognize the needs for affordable housing in our community. And hopefully even provide housing for primary care physicians, because we have a dearth of them and need them to provide health care for all of us, and the nursing staffs and ancillary services as well.
And last thing I'll say is, I heard you talk about workforce housing. I think workforce housing is great, but also, at CID we serve very low income, extremely low income, and we need to do something to create housing and make housing more affordable.
So you should know that most of the housing we do now, the housing we built, the thousands of units we have built, are for low income and very low income residents. That's where our focus has been and will continue to be. But we're looking at some of these surplus parcels to be able to use them for workforce housing. And frankly, those people that are even housed in the 30% of AMI, I mean, they're working. So you cannot live in this county and not be working. And in many cases, many moms that I've talked to, they're working 2 jobs. So it's all workforce housing.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Supervisor Speier. I'm Nora Melendez, and we first met maybe, when my kids were in preschool. So we worked a little bit on together, for a meeting for moms, working moms and preschool age kids, and it was a really wonderful experience. So thank you for that. And that drew me here today on behalf of my kids and my partner, who was also transferred by jail services in McGuire, Redwood City, transferred to ICE back in 2018. So we've been working on our case, right, for trying to prevent his deportation, which, has been just kind of something over our heads for quite some time. And we're hoping that we have a resolution this year. So that's really why I came, again, to thank you for your work with me throughout this whole time, really, because if it wasn't for your work, my kids and I wouldn't be here. My partner wouldn't be here, so thank you.
Okay, our last question.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, Supervisor Speier. My name is Vaughn Gregory, and I'm a San Bruno resident. I have 2 issues, and one of them is safe and sane fireworks versus illegal fireworks. San Bruno and Pacifica have had safe and sane fireworks for a number of years, but it's the illegal fireworks in San Bruno and other cities that are the big problem. And also, they're fire problems, they're police problems. What is the county doing to arrest people who are selling and using safe and sane fireworks? How are they working with the local police agencies? Is there a plan to get rid of that illegal fireworks?
Well, first of all, the county has a prohibition against any kind of fireworks in the unincorporated areas. So we go beyond what San Bruno or Pacifica does. I think the time has come when, after watching what we saw in Southern California, we can't have them at all. We should have beautiful fireworks on the bay that we can all enjoy, but when you have a reveal that a couple does to announce the birth of their soon-to-be baby, and it turns into a fire that takes homes away. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know if we're on the same page on this. If someone said, do I support safe and sane fireworks in Pacifica and San Bruno, I would say no.
My question is, what is the effort by the county to take care of the illegal problem?
The illegal problem is one that when we're made aware of it, action is taken. I can't give you specifics of how many pounds of illegal fireworks have been apprehended, but I'll find out and let you know. But I don't know if law enforcement here, maybe we can get the police chief to say something about that.
I would just say it's a local issue, and we in the county, each of our cities, works together with the sheriff, who actually handles the unincorporated in the county areas, and the contract cities. So we have an all-out effort. I'm an interim chief, but I know because we're already planning for next July 4th. And for each of our agencies, it's an all-out effort to really combat the illegal fireworks. And even though there are safe and sane allowed here, throughout the county, illegal fireworks are an issue. And each and every fire department, each and every police department put together significant plans to attack it.
I have one other quick question. Measure A, what is your position on Measure A, and presuming that it is actually passed when the vote is counted, what is your position on removing the sheriff from the position?
Okay, so because Measure A created a mechanism by which the Board of Supervisors would take on a quasi-judicial role in determining whether or not the sheriff had violated her job by either malfeasance, interference in investigations, misappropriations of funds, abuse of power. I have to be a judge in that process. So I am not in a position right now to talk about what I will do relative to the judge until there's a fact finding, and then that is presented to the Board of Supervisors, which will then evaluate it. The sheriff will be given the opportunity to come and testify, and then a decision will be made. But I need to make you aware of one thing. Even after a decision is made, one way or the other, this could take a period of time. So Measure A was not, if your expectation was that Measure A was going to be something that was going to give the Board of Supervisors the power to act, and if they saw that there was evidence to remove the sheriff to do so, that's not going to happen that way. Because due process has to play a role, and due process requires that the sheriff can, in court, choose to ask for an injunction or make a claim about bias or ex post facto. You've seen court cases go on for long periods of time. So, having said all that, I really have to remain in a position to be able to evaluate it in an unbiased situation. But don't expect some fast decision coming out of the Board of Supervisors. Okay, well thank you. This is my first town hall, and as a member of the Board of Supervisors, it's been wonderful. Thank you for coming, and I hope it was helpful to you. Yes?
I just want to mention really quickly is that I just want to remind everyone, I understand everyone's concerns. I was there at the city council meeting years ago when the city council decided to put the measure on the ballot for San Bruno safe and sane fireworks. And I was a proponent of it because at the time I lived in that part that was up the street. And our PTO was one of that was the largest fundraiser for the year. And it was through the year to provide programming for our students. Safe and sane, some safe and sane here in San Bruno help support youth programs. I just want to remind everyone, decided to move forward with that. So, I understand if you want to do away with them, I get that, but at the same time, we're going to be taking funding, that funding mechanism from our youth to provide those type of programs for students, which is whatever program it is. So, just it's really all about the youth, and I get the safety factor, so that was my thing.
Okay, so let me just introduce my staff. So if you have questions, want to reach me, Randy is right there. Lucia is in the back. And Brian, who you may have known, has been with me for 25 years or so, is working as a volunteer in the office. So he continues to be with us. And we have one of our newest interns, and I'm so thrilled. Jelaine is with us, and she helps do a diaper drive in Daly City, because if you didn't know this, if you're on SNAP, you cannot use that money for diapers, hygiene products, or cleaning products. So diapers, which cost about $1,000 a year, you got to pay for it out of your pocket. So she, with her colleagues at Terranova?
Westmore High School.
Westmore
High School.
Westmore. Be careful, I'm sorry. Did the diaper drive, and she got so hooked that she's now starting as an intern in the office. All right, see you soon. Thank you for coming.
There's so many people.